Are the new strains of COVID still causing long COVID? And do you still need to keep an up-to-date vaccine? We finally have an answer. This is kind of a different eras tour. Post-acute sequelae in the title basically means long COVID. Out this week in the New England Journal of Medicine. And they're looking at its effect on all organ systems, so not people who have fatigue, pulmonary issues, muscle issues, clots, brain issues, all organ systems. And they studied almost 500,000 people. And they compared them to control subjects who didn't have COVID during the same time, looking at cumulative risk of acquiring post-COVID sequelae, so chronic symptoms. Unvaccinated people had 10% risk of chronic symptoms in the pre-Delta era. Just under 10%, 9.5% in the Delta era, but it's still 7.7% of chronic symptoms in the Omicron era. But if you vaccinate, you only had a 5.3% risk in the Delta era and 3.5% risk in the Omicron era. Much, much lower risk of chronic COVID symptoms. So when they're looking at overall risk, they're noticing that 28% of the risk has lowered because of the era. So the virus itself is changing, and so we're having less amounts of chronic COVID, from about 10% to 7.5%. But 72% of the lowered risk is related to vaccination. And remember, this has to do with having an active vaccine. So vaccines wear off after about 6 months, probably closer to a year with Novavax. And so only about 12-15% of most regions have people with an active vaccine. It still matters. Every single COVID infection you have is causing a 7.5% risk of chronic symptoms if you're unvaccinated, and a 3.5% risk if you are vaccinated. Bottom line, wear a mask if you're in a crowded, unventilated space, try to meet outdoors, and keep up your vaccines. COVID is still here.